Hi, I'm Leah. I'm 34 years old, and I'm a single mom to the best 7-year-old boy in the world, Caleb. Right now, I'm sitting in a gas station parking lot, wiping my tears while Caleb sits quietly in the backseat, clutching the little paper turkey he made in school. This was supposed to be our family's Thanksgiving. But instead of laughter and love, we were humiliated. Not just by strangers, but by my own parents. Because my own sister, said she didn't want to see me. And my parents listened to her. But before I take you through the nightmare that unfolded, let me take you back. Because the truth is, this didn't just happen today. This was a long time coming. I grew up in a mid-sized town outside of Springfield, Illinois. My parents, Frank and Lorraine, weren't rich, but they were decent people. Or at least I used to think so. They had 2 daughters, me, the planner, the quiet one, the one who always followed the rules. And Brittany, the wild one. The golden girl. The one who could do no wrong. When Brittany and I were little, I used to idolize her. She was 3 years younger than me, and I thought everything she did was amazing. She was bold, funny, loud. She got into mischief, and somehow, it was always cute when she did it. But if I so much as got a B on my report card, the entire house went quiet with disappointment. You know the type of childhood where one kid is the responsible one and the other gets a free pass for everything? That was us. I went to community college, got a degree in education, and started teaching 2nd grade. I worked hard. Always. Meanwhile, Brittany dropped out of high school her senior year because she didn't feel like it anymore. And my parents? They bought her a used car to motivate her. That was the first time I realized I was the fallback. The one they leaned on. And she? She was the one they bent over backward for. When I got pregnant at 26, it wasn't exactly planned. The father, Evan, bailed the moment I told him. Said he wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. Classic. But I kept the baby. And when Caleb was born, it was the most beautiful and terrifying moment of my life. Suddenly, I wasn't just Leah. I was someone's mom. And I had to do it all, diapers, feedings, sleepless nights, alone. You'd think that's when my parents would have stepped up. They helped, a little. A few babysitting shifts here and there. But for the most part, they were busy helping Brittany. Because surprise, Brittany had just gotten arrested. Shoplifting. My parents bailed her out, no questions asked. Paid for her lawyer, paid the fines, enrolled her in a life coach course that cost over $1,000. And me? I was juggling 2 part-time teaching gigs just to keep Caleb in daycare and our lights on. But I didn't complain. Because I believed, family is family. A widening gap. Over the next few years, the differences between how my parents treated us became impossible to ignore. I showed up to every family function with homemade dishes, thoughtful gifts, and Caleb always dressed up like a little gentleman. Brittany showed up late, or not at all, then left with leftovers, my mom's jewelry, and cash from my dad's wallet. And no one said a word. It was like the more chaos she created, the more they clung to her. And the more stability I provided, the more invisible I became. Even Caleb noticed. "Why does Aunt Brittany always get new stuff from Grandma?" he asked me once at age 5. I didn't know how to explain it to him. How do you explain favoritism to a child without breaking their heart? "I don't know, sweetie," I said, pulling him close. Sometimes grown-ups just make weird choices. But it only got worse. Thanksgiving plans begin. This year, I was finally excited about Thanksgiving. I had just gotten a full-time teaching position with benefits and a decent raise. For once, I had a little breathing room. I wanted to do something special. So I called my mom in October and said, "Why don't I host this year?" There was a long pause on the phone. "Well," she said slowly, "we sort of already planned on having it here again." That's done. But okay. I played along. I offered to help with food, decorations, whatever she needed. We'll let you know, she said. But she never did. Still, I made plans. Caleb and I picked out little pumpkin-shaped name tags to bring, and I ordered a fall bouquet to surprise her with. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I called to confirm the time. That's when things started to unravel. Actually, my mom said, there's been a change. Brittany was coming. She just got out of a tough situation, my dad added vaguely. And, she's not in a good place emotionally. She asked if it would be okay if you weren't there. I felt like the wind got knocked out of me. What? I said. She doesn't want me there? On Thanksgiving? It's just temporary, Mom said quickly. Just this year. To keep things peaceful. Peaceful? You kick your daughter and grandson out of Thanksgiving to keep the peace? I felt like a stranger in my own family. But the worst part? I still showed up. Because Caleb had been looking forward to it for weeks. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd change their minds when they saw us. But when we arrived, everything changed. The driveway was packed with familiar cars, my uncle's rusty Chevy, Aunt Mel's SUV, even my cousin Jenna's hybrid. It looked like every branch of the family tree had shown up. The sun was just beginning to dip behind the trees, casting that warm, golden light that always makes everything feel a little more magical. Caleb had his little paper turkey in one hand and a tray of homemade sweet potato casserole in the other. He was smiling wide, his tiny sweater vest a little crooked, but perfect. I still believed, in that one moment, that somehow everything would be okay. That family wouldn't turn us away. That love would outweigh whatever grudge Brittany was nursing. I rang the doorbell. I could hear laughter inside, forks clinking on plates, the faint sound of a football game on TV. My mom opened the door, but she didn't step forward. She didn't smile. She looked nervous. Behind her, I saw my dad pacing in the hallway, his jaw tight. Leah, my mom said, her voice low and cautious. We didn't expect you to come. Caleb beamed up at her. Hi, Grandma. I made you something. He held up the turkey. His little fingers had glued colorful construction paper feathers onto a traced handprint. He'd written thankful for Grandma in wobbly letters. My mom looked at it and blinked. She didn't take it. Oh, honey, she said, hesitating. That's sweet. But today's a little complicated. I stepped forward, still trying to hold on to Grace. Mom, please. You said Brittany didn't want me there. You never said Caleb couldn't come. Her expression changed then. I saw it in her eyes, the hesitation, the discomfort, and something colder underneath it. Brittany's been through a lot. She needs stability. Seeing you might upset her. I felt like I'd been slapped. She needs stability? I repeated. What about Caleb? What do you think this is doing to him? My dad finally came over. He didn't look me in the eye. We're asking you to respect this. Just for today. Caleb looked up at me, confused. Mom? Are we going inside? That's when my mother said it. There's not enough room, sweetheart. We didn't plan for extra guests. Not enough room. In a 5-bedroom house, with 2 fold-out tables in the dining room, they were telling my son, their grandson, there wasn't enough room. I felt my stomach twist. I could taste the shame. I knelt beside Caleb, brushing the hair from his forehead. It's okay, baby, I whispered. We're gonna go somewhere even better. His little face fell. But I made this for Grandma. I turned to my parents, holding back everything in me that wanted to scream. You made your choice. I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving. We turned around. I walked us back to the car in slow motion, like every step was through molasses. Caleb climbed into the back seat quietly. No questions. No tears. Just silence. That made it worse. I sat in the front seat, gripping the steering wheel, trying not to cry. But the tears came anyway, hot and fast. Not because I was surprised, but because deep down, some part of me had still hoped they would pick us. That family would mean something again. But they'd chosen Brittany. Again. I turned around in the seat, my voice soft. Hey buddy. Want to go get pancakes? He nodded. We drove to a nearby diner, the kind that's always half empty on holidays. A waitress named Denise gave Caleb extra whipped cream on his hot chocolate. I told her it was just the two of us this year. She gave me a sad smile, like she knew exactly what that meant. We sat in a booth near the window. Outside, families were coming and going in minivans, kids in festive sweaters, adults balancing casserole dishes wrapped in foil. I watched them and thought, so this is what being unwanted feels like. Not just by strangers, but by the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. Caleb broke his silence about halfway through his pancakes. Did I do something wrong? That shattered me. I reached across the table and took his hand. No. You did everything right. You were kind, you were thoughtful, and you made something beautiful for Grandma. You did nothing wrong. Then why didn't they want us there? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense. They forget what's important. But I promise you, it has nothing to do with you. He nodded slowly. But I knew it would stay with him. The first Thanksgiving he would remember as the one where his own grandparents turned him away at the door. That night, after I tucked Caleb into bed, I sat alone in the living room. The casserole dish was still full, untouched. I thought about throwing it away. But I couldn't. It felt like the last piece of proof that I tried, that I came in peace. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my cousin Jenna. I can't believe what happened today. I'm so sorry. I didn't know they told you not to come. I stared at the screen. My hands shook. I hadn't told anyone. My parents clearly hadn't either. I asked her what Brittany said. Apparently, Brittany told everyone that I'd chosen not to come because I was too sensitive about family drama. She said I was keeping Caleb away to punish our parents. That I was jealous of her. I wanted to scream. Instead, I typed back one line, "That's not what happened." Jenna called me. She was furious. She'd always been closer to me than Brittany, and when I told her everything, she gasped. "I'm so sorry, Leah. That's disgusting. They let Brittany lie to all of us." I thanked her. For the first time all day, I didn't feel completely alone. Over the next 2 days, I got a few more messages. From an uncle, a cousin, even my dad's sister who lived in Oregon. Word had gotten around. People were shocked. Some even offered to stop by and bring Caleb a gift. But the damage had been done. And then, as if to add insult to injury, Brittany posted a picture on Facebook, my parents' house, glowing with string lights, the caption, "Thankful for family, second chances, and finally, peace at the table." Peace. At the cost of cutting out the child who had never caused them harm. I didn't comment. I didn't argue. But I felt something shift inside me that night. Something final. They had always made excuses for Brittany. But now they'd hurt my son. They looked into his eyes and told him there wasn't room for him. They rejected an innocent child for the sake of Brittany's comfort. And I couldn't forgive that. Not this time. I spent the weekend replaying everything. Every birthday party we were forgotten for. Every holiday they made excuses. Every time they bailed Brittany out of trouble but left me to figure out life on my own. It all clicked into place. I wasn't their daughter anymore. Not really. I was just the inconvenient truth. The reminder that real love takes effort, and they never wanted to put it in for me. But I wasn't going to let Caleb grow up thinking this was normal. I owed him more than that. I started thinking about what real family looks like. What love really means. And I made a decision. This would be the last year I showed up for people who never showed up for me. The next time they wanted to see us, they'd have to do more than just unlock the front door. They'd have to earn their way back. And as for Brittany? She wasn't the only one who could play games. Because what they didn't know is that I had something they never expected. And it would change everything. It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. It was the following Wednesday. Caleb was at school, and I was on my lunch break, staring out the window with a cup of coffee I hadn't even taken a sip of. My phone buzzed across the kitchen table. It was Jenna again. I picked up. "Leah," she said, breathless. "Are you sitting down? What happened?" I asked immediately, my stomach tensing. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but you deserve to know. Brittany's in trouble." I blinked. "What kind of trouble?" She hesitated, then said, "Legal. Financial. Possibly criminal." That got my full attention. Apparently, earlier that day, my uncle, who worked at a local credit union, had gotten word that Brittany's accounts were flagged for suspicious activity. There had been several large deposits, followed by even larger withdrawals. Funds bouncing between accounts. One belonging to her boyfriend, another to a business name no one recognized. But that wasn't the worst of it. Jenna told me that Brittany had been using our parents' information, social security numbers, home address, even their retirement fund credentials, to take out loans. Personal ones. Big ones. Over $80,000 in total. I felt my breath leave my body like I'd been punched. "You're saying Brittany stole from Mom and Dad?" "Yes," Jenna said quietly. "She forged documents. Claimed she was managing the accounts to help them consolidate debts. But she's been using the money to fund some sketchy business idea her boyfriend's been pushing. Something to do with crypto or NFTs, I don't even know. The point is, it's not just bad, it's illegal." I sat there, stunned. For years, I'd carried the weight of being the difficult daughter. The ungrateful one. The outsider. And yet here was Brittany, the golden child, the one who got the seat at every holiday table, ripping our parents off behind closed doors. "Do they know?" I finally asked. "They found out 2 nights ago," Jenna said. "Your dad went ballistic. But your mom, she's still trying to defend her. Saying it was a misunderstanding. That Brittany meant well. That she just got caught up in something." Of course she was. It was like watching a loop play over and over again. Brittany could burn the house down and Mom would call it a candle accident. But this time, it was different. This time there were consequences beyond just family drama. This time the bank was involved. "Are they pressing charges?" I asked. Jenna hesitated. "I think your dad wants to, but your mom's stalling. She doesn't want to ruin her future. She's hoping they can pay the money back quietly. Sweep it under the rug." That phrase stuck with me. Sweep it under the rug. The same rug they'd used to cover years of Brittany's chaos, while I got blamed for the stains. I hung up the phone with Jenna, my head spinning. I sat in silence for a long time, processing it all. Then I looked over at the side table where Caleb had left his drawing from Thanksgiving. The one he'd made for Grandma, the one she hadn't even touched. And something inside me shifted again. I wasn't happy about Brittany getting caught. I wasn't gloating. But I was done staying quiet. That night, I wrote a letter. Not a petty one. Not angry. Just honest. I told my parents everything I'd held back for years, how it felt growing up in Brittany's shadow. How I'd tried, over and over, to earn their respect. How it broke something inside me when they shut the door on Caleb at Thanksgiving. I reminded them that love isn't about convenience or comfort, it's about presence. Sacrifice. Fairness. And I told them plainly. I will not allow my son to grow up thinking rejection is normal. You told a child there was no room for him in your home. But now you're bending over backwards for the one who stole from you. That's not family. That's dysfunction dressed as loyalty. I ended it with this. When you're ready to have a relationship based on truth, not guilt, not favoritism, I'll be here. But until then, I'm stepping away. Not out of anger. Out of self-respect. I sent the letter by email. And then I blocked notifications. 2 days passed before I got a response. It wasn't from my parents. It was from Brittany. Her email was a 3-paragraph monologue. Defensive. Vague. Accusing me of kicking people when they're down. She denied the fraud allegations outright and said it was just a mix-up. Then she said something that boiled my blood. I'm sorry Caleb was disappointed. But I'm not responsible for your bitterness. Bitterness. I read the word 5 times. This was the girl who had publicly humiliated me, taken money from our parents, lied to their faces, and still found a way to call me bitter? I didn't reply. But the final straw came the following weekend. My dad showed up. He came to my apartment without warning. Knocked on the door like nothing had happened. Caleb was watching cartoons in the background. I opened the door and stepped out, closing it gently behind me. We stood in the hallway in silence for a moment. Then he said, "Your mom doesn't want me here." But I had to come. I folded my arms. Why? He looked exhausted. There were bags under his eyes I didn't remember seeing before. Because she won't listen. And because, you were right. That caught me off guard. He went on to explain how Brittany had admitted to some of it, said she'd borrowed the money with the intention of paying it back. But there were no records. No real plan. Just lies and excuses and disappearing funds. She's been playing all of us, he said, staring at the ground. And we let her. I didn't say anything. I wanted to hear the rest. Your mother, she's still in denial. She thinks if we just help Brittany one more time, she'll change. But Leah, she's 34. She's not changing. I finally spoke. So what now? He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. Now I do what I should have done years ago. I start rebuilding my relationship with the daughter who never asked for anything but fairness. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was a start. We talked for an hour. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He admitted to years of turning a blind eye. To prioritizing peace over justice. And finally, to letting my mother's favoritism become the law of the household. I don't know how to fix it, he said at the end. But I want to try. I nodded. You can start by being there for Caleb, I said. Because he still thinks he did something wrong. My dad's face broke when I said that. It was like watching the guilt finally settle in his bones. I'll fix that, he whispered. I promise. He left after that. Quietly. With more humility than I'd ever seen in him. And while I wasn't ready to invite him in just yet, I didn't close the door on him either. As for my mother? She never responded to the letter. Not directly. But a week later, I saw she'd deleted Brittany's Thanksgiving post from Facebook. Then she went dark. I don't know what conversations happened behind closed doors. I don't know if she's still clinging to her image of Brittany as the perfect daughter. But I do know this. For the first time in years, the truth wasn't being buried. And in its place, something new was beginning to grow. The first snow of December fell lightly over the city as I packed Caleb's school lunch. It was a Wednesday morning, and we were already running 5 minutes late. He was still upstairs looking for the right socks, and I was trying to keep the toast from burning when my phone lit up. A text. From my mother. Leah. We're having Christmas Eve dinner at our house this year. Just like old times. We'd love to have you and Caleb. Please come. I stared at it. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just. Please come. Like Thanksgiving never happened. Like Brittany hadn't lied, stolen, and walked away untouched. Like my son hadn't cried in the car outside their house while I held back tears of my own. I didn't respond. That weekend, another message came, this time from Brittany herself. Short and sharp. Mom wants you there. Don't make this about you again. I set my phone down, my hands shaking. Again. That word always carried so much venom coming from her. As if my boundaries were tantrums. As if my refusal to keep playing the family scapegoat was some exhausting personal flaw. For a moment, I considered responding with all the things I wanted to say, years of unsaid truths waiting to be unleashed. But I didn't. Not this time. Instead, I focused on Caleb. He'd been happier these past few weeks. More relaxed. I'd found him humming to himself while brushing his teeth, doodling little snowmen and reindeer on the fridge calendar. When I asked him who he wanted to spend Christmas with, he didn't hesitate. You, he said, smiling up at me. Just you. So I made a decision. We would not be attending Christmas at my parents' house. This year, I would not walk into a room where my presence was conditional. I would not explain myself to people who only knew how to listen when their world collapsed. I would create a new memory. For him. For us. I rented a tiny cabin 2 hours outside the city. It wasn't fancy, just 1 bedroom, a fireplace, and a view of snow-covered pine trees. But it was quiet. Honest. Real. On Christmas Eve, we packed up the car with hot cocoa packets, a stack of holiday DVDs, and the little artificial tree Caleb and I had decorated the week before. I played Nat King Cole on the drive and let myself breathe in the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. That night, we baked cookies, danced in our pajamas, and stayed up way past bedtime watching the Polar Express. Caleb fell asleep in my arms, warm and safe. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. But life has a way of knocking on your door even when you're miles away. Literally. At 10:43 a.m. on Christmas Day, someone knocked on the cabin door. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. No one should even know where we were. When I opened the door, my heart stopped. It was my father. He stood there, bundled in a coat, scarf crooked, holding a small gift in one hand and a grocery bag in the other. I asked Jenna where you might be, he said softly. She told me not to come. Said I should leave you alone. But I couldn't let the year end like this. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. What are you doing here? I asked, not angry, just stunned. He didn't answer right away. Just looked out toward the trees, breath fogging in the cold air. I didn't go to the Christmas dinner either, he said finally. Not after what happened. Not after what your mother said. I waited, listening. She told me I was making everything worse. That I was turning on my own daughter. But I told her, no. I was standing by my daughter. You. A lump formed in my throat. I brought some food, he said, lifting the grocery bag. Ham, mashed potatoes, that cranberry sauce you like. I thought maybe I could join you and Caleb. Just for a little while. I looked at him for a long moment. The man who had let me be pushed aside for years. The man who was now, slowly, trying to be better. Caleb's inside watching cartoons, I said. You can come in. He smiled, relieved, and followed me inside. The cabin was warm and smelled like cinnamon. Caleb's eyes lit up when he saw his grandfather. Grandpa, he shouted, running to hug his legs. My dad looked like he was going to cry right there on the spot. We ate together around the tiny wooden table. No fancy silverware. No tension. No eggshells. My dad helped Caleb build a gingerbread house, and for a couple of hours, it was as if all the pain and distance faded into something simpler: love, effort, healing. Later, after Caleb went upstairs to nap, my father and I sat near the fireplace. I know this doesn't fix everything, he said. But I meant what I said. I want to do better. I nodded. You're here. That means something. He looked down, twisting his hands. Your mother, she's not ready. She still sees any of this as betrayal. To Brittany. To the image she spent so long protecting. I sighed. She's going to lose both daughters if she keeps choosing silence. He nodded. I told her that, too. We sat in silence for a while. The fire cracked. Outside, snow began to fall again. Before he left, my father handed me the small box he'd brought. Inside was a framed photo of me as a kid, maybe 7 or 8, sitting on his shoulders at a 4th of July fair, laughing, mouth open wide with joy. I found it last week, he said. Thought you should have it. I hugged him for the first time in years. And for once, I didn't feel like I was hugging a stranger. That night, as Caleb and I tucked ourselves into bed, I felt something settle inside me. Not closure, but clarity. I couldn't force my mother to understand. I couldn't rewrite the past or fix Brittany's choices. But I could break the cycle. I could raise my son in a home that never made him question his worth. I could protect him from the kind of emotional confusion I grew up with. And I could show him that family isn't about obligation, it's about showing up. And someone finally had. New Year's Day came and went without a single call from my parents. No text. No Happy New Year for Ethan. And strangely, I didn't miss it. There was something liberating about the quiet. In past years, I would have chased that call. I would have reminded them to include Ethan, nudged them to remember me. But not this time. I had finally learned what it felt like to reserve space only for those who earned it. But the silence didn't last. On the second Friday of January, I got an email from my mom. Not a call. Not even a text. An email. Formal. Cold. Like something you'd send to a stranger. Morgan. We realize the holidays did not go as hoped, and we are very sorry you felt excluded. That was never our intention. Amanda has been in a fragile state, and we made some difficult decisions to keep the peace. Please understand, this wasn't personal. We'd like to meet for brunch this Sunday to talk things through. Maybe at Marlowe's? Let us know. Mom. I stared at the screen for a long time. They wanted to talk things through? Now, after 2 months of complete radio silence? After humiliating me and Ethan on Thanksgiving and treating us like strangers for the holidays? I didn't reply. That Sunday, instead of brunch with my parents, I took Ethan sledding. We laughed, raced down snowy hills, drank hot cocoa from a thermos. And not once did I think about what they might be saying over coffee and croissants without me. But they didn't stop. 2 weeks later, my dad showed up at my office building. Just walked in like it was nothing. My receptionist looked confused when she buzzed me. There's a Robert here to see you. Says he's your father? My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen him since that awkward visit to the cabin. I met him in the downstairs lobby, already irritated. Dad, what are you doing here? He smiled nervously. Just wanted to see you. You haven't been answering your mom's messages. Because they don't say anything, I replied, arms crossed. You both made yourselves loud and clear in November. He looked older than I remembered. More tired. Like life had aged him quickly over the last few weeks. Amanda left again. Took money from your mother's purse, disappeared last week. We don't know where she is. I didn't respond. We think she might be in Arizona. With some guy she met online. She blocked your mom's number. We filed a police report, but they can't do much unless she's considered missing. I nodded slowly. I hope she's okay. But I don't know what you want me to do about it. My dad blinked at me. Morgan, she's still your sister. No, I said. She's your daughter. You chose her. You always have. And now you get to deal with the consequences of that choice. For a moment, he looked like he might cry. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a letter, folded, creased, clearly opened and read many times. Your mom wrote this, he said, holding it out. She wanted you to read it. I didn't take it. I don't need another guilt trip disguised as an apology, I said firmly. I need boundaries. And I need you and Mom to understand that you can't just call me when Amanda blows up and expect me to clean up after her. He stared down at the letter, then slowly folded it back. You've changed, he said quietly. Yeah, I replied. I had to. He left without another word. The following month passed quietly. I focused on work. Ethan started an after-school robotics club and couldn't stop talking about it. We went hiking on weekends, watched classic movies with popcorn on Fridays, and read chapter books under the blanket every night. I was finally living the kind of life I used to dream of, calm, structured, full of love. Just the two of us. No chaos. No begging for scraps of affection from people who only knew how to take. But of course, that wasn't the end of it. In early March, I got a call from the hospital. Is this Morgan Taylor? We have your mother here. She was brought in after a fall, minor head trauma, and a fractured wrist. I froze. After a long pause, I asked, "Why are you calling me?" The nurse replied, "She listed you as her emergency contact." Of course she had. Because when Amanda vanished into thin air, I suddenly mattered again. I drove to the hospital. Not out of guilt. Not out of love. But because I needed closure. I needed to see for myself what was left of the woman who once told me I was too much for wanting basic respect. She looked small in that hospital bed. Pale. Her wrist was in a cast, her hair disheveled, but she still had that same tight-lipped expression that never fully softened. When she saw me, she flinched. Morgan. Mom. Silence filled the room like fog. Thick. Unbearable. You didn't respond to my letter, she said softly. I nodded. I didn't need to. I was just trying to explain. No, I interrupted. You were trying to excuse. Her eyes welled up. I made mistakes. Not mistakes, I said. Choices. Repeated choices. You let Amanda sabotage every good moment I could have had with this family. You enabled her behavior. You punished me for being stable. For being too easy to ignore. She wiped a tear from her cheek, trembling. I didn't know what to do. Yes, you did, I said. You just didn't want to be uncomfortable. So you made me hold the weight. She looked broken. and part of me felt something close to pity. But not enough to forget. The door opened. Ethan peeked in with a nurse, holding a juice box. "Hi, Grandma," he said gently. She smiled faintly. "Hi, sweetheart." For a brief second, I saw the vision of the family I'd always wanted. A kind grandma, a forgiving daughter, a boy who knew unconditional love. But then it vanished. I stood. "We'll be going now. Let the doctors know if you need anything else. And if you really want help, get professional care. Not me." And just like that, we walked out. 2 weeks later, a lawyer contacted me. Amanda had been arrested in Arizona, possession and identity theft. My parents were desperate to bail her out, but their finances were shot. They were facing eviction. And they wanted to sell the house. "I have nothing to do with this," I told the lawyer. "They'll have to figure it out." "But the house is in your name," he added. "You refinanced it 5 years ago to stop foreclosure, remember?" I'd forgotten. Technically, the house was mine. If they sold it, I'd be the one to sign. I took a week to think. Then I signed the sale agreement, but not before arranging for the remaining equity to go into a trust account. One Ethan could access when he turned 18. My parents would receive nothing. By the time Easter rolled around, I received one final letter. This one handwritten. Sloppy. Desperate. It was from Amanda. "I know you hate me. I know I messed up. But I'm in trouble. And I'm scared. Please, just tell Ethan I'm sorry. I really did love him." I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and never looked at it again. That Easter Sunday, Ethan and I had our own celebration. Just us. We dyed eggs in pastel colors, hid jelly beans around the living room, and watched old cartoons in pajamas. He laughed so loud I could feel it in my bones. He was safe. Happy. Whole. And I finally was too. Spring bloomed quietly that year. The kind of slow, subtle beauty that doesn't announce itself, it just arrives. One morning, I noticed the cherry blossoms in the park near our apartment. Another day, Ethan came home with a dandelion crown a classmate made him. Life wasn't dramatic anymore. It was peaceful. And in that peace, I began to heal. Not the kind of healing people expect, not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not some family reunion moment wrapped in tears and hugs. No. This was the quieter kind. The kind you earn by choosing yourself every single day, even when you've been trained not to. After selling the house, my parents moved into a modest rental in a town 2 hours away. I didn't visit. I didn't send updates. I made it clear, if they wanted to rebuild a relationship with me or with Ethan, it had to begin with real accountability. Not letters. Not last-minute apologies. Real work. Real change. They never called again. Amanda ended up serving a 6-month sentence. I found out through a newspaper article forwarded by a distant cousin. She was arrested again later that year, another state, different name, new charges. That time, I didn't even flinch. Her chaos no longer belonged to me. I had stopped being her collateral damage. Ethan thrived. He was on the honor roll, got invited to a citywide STEM camp, and had started writing little stories on his own. One day, he handed me a drawing. It was us, on a porch swing, looking out at the stars. "This is what our house will look like someday," he said proudly. Just us two. Safe. Quiet. I hung it up above my desk. Some people say children forget. That they grow out of the pain. But Ethan remembered Thanksgiving. He remembered being told he wasn't welcome. He never asked about Amanda. He never mentioned my parents again. And I never forced him to. One evening, a school counselor asked if I wanted to bring family to an awards ceremony Ethan was being honored at. Just me, I said. And that was enough. By the time the next Thanksgiving came around, we had new traditions. I didn't even mark the date. Instead, Ethan and I traveled to the coast. We stayed in a small bed and breakfast, walked on the beach in sweaters, and ate dinner at a quiet restaurant overlooking the water. There were no expectations, no judgment, no roles to perform. Just real moments. Authentic connection. That night, I wrote in my journal something I hadn't been able to say out loud for years. I am not broken because of them. I'm stronger because I walked away. A few days later, a letter arrived from my mother. But this time, it was different. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a manipulation. It was short. Simple. I understand if you never speak to me again. But I want you to know I finally see it. I see what I did to you. What I allowed Amanda to do. I don't expect forgiveness. But I do hope Ethan is happy. Mom. For the first time, I didn't feel triggered. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just folded the letter and placed it in a small box I kept, a box full of old wounds I no longer opened, but refused to destroy. A part of my history, not my identity. A year passed. I started dating someone, a teacher at Ethan's school. Kind, patient, and nothing like anyone I had known before. I didn't rush it. I let love move slowly. Ethan liked him. Trusted him. And that was enough for me. We bought a small house on the outskirts of town. It had a porch swing. The exact one Ethan had drawn years ago. And one evening, as we all sat outside under a sky full of stars, Ethan turned to me and asked, "Do you think Grandma ever thinks about us?" I paused. "I think she does," I replied. "But I don't think she knows how to say it out loud." He nodded. "It's okay. I like the family we made." Tears welled in my eyes. I squeezed his hand. Me too. I never sent a response to my mother's last letter. Some things are better left without reply. But I did something else instead. I let go. Completely. I stopped looking back, stopped rehearsing arguments in my head. I stopped wondering if they would change. Because I had changed. And that was enough. The day Ethan graduated from middle school, I stood in the crowd, heart full, knowing that everything I had sacrificed was worth it. I wasn't just a single mom. I was his safe place. His home. His person. The principal called his name, and I watched him walk across the stage with that same quiet confidence I had fought for my entire life. Later that night, we had cake on the porch. The same porch he dreamed of. He looked up at me and said, "I know you don't like talking about it, but I'm glad you didn't let them keep hurting us." I smiled. Me too. People think family is blood. But that's a lie. Family is who shows up when you're at your lowest. Who listens without trying to fix you. Who doesn't punish you for speaking your truth. Family is who builds with you, not who breaks you down and calls it love. I didn't lose my family. I walked away from people who never chose me, and in doing so, I created the one Ethan and I always deserved. And I would do it all over again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful, emotional stories like this one, stories of strength, healing, and the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for watching.